Right, everybody, my peoples out there, wherever you are, you watching this strong inspirations, man. I got a guy on the channel. He a good-looking guy. Man, he ready. He got his shirt and his tie on. He ready. He's serious about what he about to talk about. I so appreciate he's on Strong Inspirations, where you know what we do here. We give it to you straight, no chaser. I don't do the talking. I find these brilliant people who got this passion about what they do, this Black history stories that they know, and I kind of convince them. Some, a little harder than others, what have you. It wasn't hard with this guy because he want to tell this one. And they come on the channel. And so we do these interviews. And so my friends, I invite you, come on now, you know what I'm about to say. Hit the subscribe button. It's free. I don't know why you're holding up. What's the hold up? You know what I mean? It don't cost you nothing. You don't put no information in. You just say I subscribe. Hit the like button on this video because you're gonna really like what he's about to tell you, man. He's gonna tell you some stuff. Hit the like button on this video. Hit the notifications bell because I'm putting 4 or 5 videos up a week now, as you see. I know you're watching me. And so it just gives you a little ding so you know, and maybe you can be the first to watch it. And then do this, my friend. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Don't keep this to yourself thinking you got something up on people. My brothers, I'll be honest, you got a lady friend and you want to impress, tell her about Strong Inspirations. She gonna say you a good guy. If you know about Strong Inspirations. Young lady, you got a guy you want to meet, tell him about Strong Inspirations. You don't know, he might figure, hey, I like history, you like history, let's get it on. And then do this for me. You know I'm a filmmaker now. I'm serious about my game. Took me 2 years to do this documentary on the rise of Black business in America. All right, it's 75 minutes long, it's good. I had somebody tell me they thought it was good, and not just one people, because I went to about 40 cities showing this on my own dime, because I had to get the word out. And it's a lot of good information. It's streaming on Amazon. And if you got a DVD player, get the DVD. And I got a book. See, I'm telling you this, I'm a historian now, right? I wrote a book on the rise of Black business in America. It's called Black Business Book. It's over 200 facts about Black people that's doing it back in the day. I'm talking about even when we was enslaved, you couldn't hold us back. We got a way to get money then. And I name about 14 Black-owned businesses that were owned by slaves. And then the slaves took the money and gave it to the white man and said, let me go, man, I'm tired of this. I got things to do. It's in my book, right? And it talks about so much more than that. And one of the things we talk about in the book is really the lead into the guy that's sitting there, he's smiling, he say, come on, man, I'm ready to go, I got things to do. Is about a guy named Ruby Foster, who was really the founder of the Negro Baseball League, right? I got that in the book. He gonna talk about it later. In a second, I ain't gonna hold him up no longer. And the book is on Amazon too, right? You know, Amazon, that man got everything. You gotta go through Amazon. But if you don't, you wanna go to my website, go to businessintheblack.net. I really appreciate it. And either way you go and get the book, I tell you what I do for you. I'm gonna autograph it. Now my writing is kind of bad, but I will autograph it. And, maybe that'll mean something one day. Watch out, because I got big plans. I'm moving and I'm grooving. And as I'm moving and grooving, I'm about to stop talking. Come on, brother, introduce yourself to us a little bit about yourself. Let's get it on.
Everybody, I'm Bob Kendrick. I'm president of the Negro League Baseball Museum. Anthony, thanks for having me on the show, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate you putting on the shirt and tie, man. You ready? I sometimes wear them, sometimes I don't. Where are you located? Where's the museum?
We're at historic 18th and Vine in Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri. Are you a native of Kansas City?
No, no, I was born and raised in Georgia, small town Georgia, Crawfordville, Georgia, about 80 miles east of Atlanta, 50 miles west of Augusta, all of about 500 people. So
Is that
country
right?
boy.
What's the name
Yeah,
of the town?
Crawfordville, Georgia.
Never heard of it, man.
Nobody else has either.
And you the main
Except
man out of Crawfordville, I'm sure, right? Everybody know you. Come on, man. I know they know you, man. You president of the museum.
no, no, it's one of those towns where everybody knew everybody. Everybody had jurisdiction over you, so you couldn't get in any trouble. But I tell you what, it was a humble environment to grow up in. But Anthony, I wouldn't change it for anything in the
Oh,
world.
I can agree with that.
That's where my heart is. That's where my roots are. And I think my makeup
Yeah.
starts, it starts there. And
Is there some Black history that happened in your town? Some stuff that went down?
it's really an interesting town because Crawfordville was actually the home of the vice president of the Confederacy, a guy named
Oh,
Alexander H. Stevens. And so I grew up around all this Confederate history as a kid, didn't pay it any attention because, quite frankly, I wasn't that deep into history at all of any kind, but I certainly wasn't paying Confederate history any attention, even though that part of the state was really filled with a lot of Confederate history.
okay. Give me an
And
example. What are you talking about? Like they got monuments to this
oh
guy?
yeah, no, there's state park and everything named after this guy because again, he's a hometown guy and he becomes the vice president of the Confederacy. And I guess they were proud of that. And so all of these symbols were around me as a kid in a town that was actually predominantly black. And so, it was always interesting and you didn't think that much about it because when you only know what you know.
Yeah.
And so when you're in an environment and your parents shelter you from anything that might even remotely cause harm. So you're kind of protected and shielded and that whole nine
Really?
yards. So I didn't think that much about it as you get older, and particularly after I left Crawfordville to come out to this neck of the woods, Parkville, Missouri, to go to school at Park College, which is now Park University. And so as you start to mature, you get a little older, you start to understand a lot more. You start to, for me, I couldn't say, people sometimes say, well, you're a historian. Well, not really. That would
Yeah, I
be doing
got
a
you. I got you.
disservice to those who are truly historians. They've dedicated their lives to
Yeah.
whatever it is that they are, facts and things that they're trying to unearth. I am very knowledgeable about the history of the Negro Leagues because I've immersed myself in it. But
Okay,
then,
hold on. Before you get there, man, I got to stay on that Crawfordsville for a
yeah,
second, brother.
yeah. So
So, I mean, my
so
man, he the vice president.
the vice president of the
Was he a
Confederacy.
politician? Do you know any of that history? Was he a politician or something?
He was to some extent a politician, and you know, I don't even really know how he made his ascent into the Confederacy. But he also ultimately was VP of the Confederacy. And so there's a state park named for him.
Is
There's a
that right?
museum, an Alexander H. Stevens Museum there in Crawfordville. At least it used to be anyway.
Yeah,
Been a little while since I've been back home. Both of my parents are deceased, and once you
yeah,
lose parents,
yeah.
that you don't have that real motivating factor
I got you. Let me
to
let me,
go
let me
back home.
flip the gear on you on this one. How about this? If you don't mind, I ask you, my brother. Growing up in a town like that, were you ever called a nigger?
I don't ever remember being called that.
Okay, cool.
Now I know others in that environment, particularly older people who had endured and experienced a whole lot
Yeah,
more than I had at that time.
yeah.
But I that never occurred with me.
Were there plantations in Crawfordville?
No, no, no. It was a small town that really didn't have much industry at all. Where we raised everything that we ate.
Oh,
So
really?
I hear these folks, all these city folks talking about organic. Well, I was eating organic when I didn't even know what organic was.
Sure, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
no, because we grew everything, and and I mean, there's a little store and that kind of thing. So my mother did go to the store and that kind of thing, but My father was a sawmill man, later owned his own pulpwood truck, and
It's on what truck?
he had a what they call a pulp wood truck, where he
What's,
actually was cutting down pine trees, selling them to the paper mills. And
oh,
that's I didn't want any part of the family business.
oh,
That's you got to be a man. You're deep
okay.
in the woods and you work running a chainsaw, and
Oh, I
yeah,
got you.
that was even more inspiration for me to get out of Crawfordville and take my butt to school.
I got you. I
But
got
he
you.
was a
I
very,
got you.
very strong, very independent uh man
I
who,
got you. I like
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. That now to go into what we're talking about. Did you play baseball?
Nothing more than sandlot. My town was too small to field a high school baseball team, so we had two sports when I was in high school: basketball and track. And I think, Anthony, everybody who knows me know that I don't believe in running if there's not a ball involved with it. And so track was out. And so I played high school basketball, which ultimately got me a basketball scholarship out here to Park College, which again now is Park University.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, yeah, I chased the basketball to the Midwest, and now I make my living in baseball, albeit baseball history.
And how did you? When did the museum get founded?
1990. 1990. So by that time, I had been living in Kansas City for about 5 years. When the
Yeah.
museum was established in 1990, I got involved with the organization in 1993 as a volunteer.
Oh,
And so that's
really?
how it started for me as a volunteer. Who knew? Who knew that you go from being a volunteer to years later now trying to run this great institution? But man, I just fell in love with the story. I fell in love with the story, and I fell in love with the athletes who made the story.
Yeah.
And I considered myself to be a baseball fan, yet there was this entire chapter of baseball and American history that I really didn't know virtually anything about.
Yeah, I didn't either. Now, is Kansas City one of the biggest hubs for Negro League baseball or something?
Well,
And
Kansas City
somebody
was.
decided to put a museum there?
Well, and so the question that is always asked of me is, why Kansas City? Well, Kansas City is the birthplace of the Negro Leagues. The leagues themselves were formed here. Matter of fact, right around the corner from my office where I'm recording this, the Paseo YMCA. That is where Rube Foster and a group of 8 independent black baseball team owners met. And that's when they signed the documents to start the Negro National League, the first successful organized black baseball league.
Yeah,
Yes, so that's why Kansas City is the rightful place
it makes
for a
sense.
museum dedicated to this story, because the origins of the leagues began right here.
I got you. Now, so Ruby Foster, what was he?
Well, he had
I
been a
mean, well,
great,
not what was he, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
He was
no,
a
Rube,
baseball player.
yeah, no, Rube had been a great ball player himself. He had been a great ball player. He had been a great pitcher in the early era of black baseball. This is prior to the formation of the Negro Leagues.
Okay, let me
Yeah,
stop you there then. Hold on, I do this, excuse me, because the questions come to mind. If he's a ball player and there's no league, what is he playing in? What
yeah, see,
happens
they were
before the
still playing.
league?
Yeah, they were still playing because they had all these independent teams.
Oh,
And
there were
that,
leagues before there was a league.
yeah, and see, therein lies where the challenge was. There was no organized structure. So getting games were difficult. Booking agents were taking all the money. So basically now it's just play anybody that you can play. Uh-huh. And that's how they were doing it.
Okay, stop you right there. When is this? What time frame are we talking
Oh,
about?
this goes back to the late 1800s. So we've
So
been
in
playing
1800s, they were playing baseball.
Yeah, no, we've been playing baseball for a long time. And really, Anthony, there's evidence of us having played baseball as enslaved people. Yeah.
Really?
So this, black folks playing baseball is not a new phenomenon. Yeah, we've been playing for a long time, but there was, and there had been efforts to create a Negro Leagues even before 1920, but they all failed. They all failed. And Rube Foster had the juice.
Okay, let me stop you there. Okay, you got me going, man. I told everybody y'all gonna like what you said. What do you think the slaves did to play baseball? They found a rock and a stick and hit the rock, and that was it.
That's it.
I'm just
That's it.
guessing. I hope it's
You
more
know,
than a rock.
and again, you know, based on what historians have dug up, that is a true indication of what likely took place, or some kind of twine that was wrapped around something that formed the ball itself. You know, so yeah, we've been a part of this game for a long, long time.
Okay.
And then black teams started to form in the late 1800s. And, you know, it was just difficult to find. They're playing white teams, they playing anybody they could play.
Oh.
But, you know, again, it was just so haphazard. And so by 1920, and this is interesting in its own right, through the urgency of the black press, the black press was pushing for the formation of an organized baseball structure that would be mirrored after Major League Baseball.
Okay.
And Rube Foster delivered.
Okay. Now who was the other guys? I mean, there were other guys that they were just prominent guys in other
Yep.
cities that were
For the
part
most
of
part,
baseball, that kind
yeah,
of
for the
thing.
most part, for the most part, as your book alludes, black businessmen who had, you know, who had the financial wherewithal to put together baseball teams. But you know, even in that era, most businesses had most businesses had baseball teams. Black businesses had baseball teams, and even mainstream businesses would have a white baseball team and a black baseball team, and so baseball was the sport, and so yeah, there were always guys playing baseball.
I
Now
like it.
the level of that play is where the difference comes in.
Yeah, sure.
But as these professional teams started to form, like I said, it was just so challenging to find games. And so the Negro Leagues were organized to become that body that was mirrored right after Major League Baseball. Same kind of structure put into place.
Was the first name Negro League Baseball, or did it have another name, changed names?
Negro National League in 1920 formed with 8 teams. And then 3 years later, the Eastern Colored League was formed. And then in 1924, you had your first Negro League World Series.
Mm.
Kansas City Monarchs against the Hilldale Daisies out of Darby, Pennsylvania. And of course, our great Kansas City Monarchs would win that inaugural World Series, becoming the city of Kansas City's first major sports professional champion of any kind in 1924.
Okay, so now they got these 8 teams and they're playing each other, and then more teams come on board. At the high point, how many teams might there have been in the Negro League?
Well, usually you had two leagues operating simultaneously of one another. So just like you do now with the National and American League and Major League
Okay,
Baseball, you had a
okay,
similar structure where you had a Negro National League in 1920, Eastern Colored League in 1923. But then from that point on, you typically had two leagues operating, you know, so with 8 teams in each league. So it was pretty balanced. And so, but what happened was leagues would fold, teams would fold, and then they would re-emerge. So the reason that our museum has a plural form in its name, you might have noticed that it says Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, is that we recognize 6 different league structures that were part of this story over a period of 40 years in which the Negro Leagues operated. And so, but yeah, there were typically two leagues running parallel to one another.
okay. Now the Negro League was a big operation
Big business.
at the time, probably one of the biggest to do what
Yes.
it did to be, and it could be considered one of the first or the top 3 or 5 to have national implications,
Oh, no
owned
question.
by Black person.
No question. You know, most refer to it as the third largest black-owned business in this country, only behind black-owned insurance companies.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
Black-owned insurance companies, and then of course, Madam C.J. Walker.
yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then next was Negro Leagues Baseball. But you're absolutely right. The implication that Negro Leagues Baseball had, in particularly spawning other black businesses
Yeah,
and
I got you.
supporting those black businesses, were even greater than those other two.
I got
You know, because wherever
got
you
you.
had successful black baseball, you typically had thriving black economies.
I got you.
Yeah.
I like it. Was there and I'm jumping all around because these questions come. Was there something different in the rules of the game
Oh,
in the Negro League compared to the White League?
the rules were pretty similar. Now, in the Negro League, you could throw everything but the kitchen sink up there now. You know, yeah, they were throwing spitballs and all these things, and that was legal though. But the rules of the game were essentially the same.
It was still 3 outs, 4
Absolutely,
strikes, I
absolutely.
mean, yeah,
But
three
the
strikes,
way
four
they
balls, all
played,
that.
but the way they played the game, now that was different.
Okay, get like an
That
example of it. What do you
well,
mean?
the pace in the Negro leagues were fast. It was bold, it was brash, it was daring, it was aggressive. So man, they were gonna drop that bunt, they were gonna steal second, they steal third. If you weren't too smart, they were stealing home. So Major League Baseball was essentially a base to base kind of game.
Okay.
So guy got on base, you moved him over to second, then the big hitters came up and tried to drive him in. But they didn't play that way in the Negro Leagues. As
Really?
my friend, the co-founder of this museum and legendary Negro Leaguer himself, John Buck O'Neill, would say, you couldn't go to the concession stand because you might miss something that you ain't never seen before. And so they brought a flair and a level of excitement that baseball sorely needed, and fans responded. We were filling up ballparks all over this country to watch what many believe to be the best baseball being played in this country, without question, the most
Yeah.
exciting brand of baseball that was
Yeah,
being
I
played.
got you. You know how brothers and sisters add another flair to things anyway, man. I can dig it, I'm sure. And so now they had the same type of, I'm sure they did, a baseball glove
Yeah,
and,
because they were buying a lot of the stuff from the mainstream baseball makers.
oh,
So they
really?
bought their bats from Louisville Slugger and other bat makers. So they're buying the same product line, from these mainstream baseball manufacturers. So that equipment, when particularly compared to the way the equipment is today,
I got
it's
you.
still amazing how good these players, both black and white, were with such inferior equipment. But
How,
yeah, so they were using very similar equipment.
how much might a player make,
It
if
depends.
you got any idea?
Yeah, no, it depends from era to era. For instance, Buck O'Neill said when he joined the Kansas City Monarchs in 1938, he was making $100 a month salary and $1 a day meal money. And as you can well imagine, the kids that would hear this story, they're wondering what in the world could you buy for $1? Well, 38, as you know, we were still in the midst of the Great Depression. And Buck stayed at the Street Hotel here in Kansas City. The Street Hotel, Anthony, was the black-owned hotel right down on the corner of 18th and the Paseo here in the historic 18th and Vine Jazz District. He says, Bob, I could walk downstairs. I could have ham and eggs and a cup of coffee for breakfast. Said he would skip lunch. He ate 2 meals a day. Said he could have a Kansas City strip steak dinner with all
Okay.
the fixings plus dessert. At that time, he smoked, could buy a package of Camel cigarettes, could walk across the street to the Gym Theater and watch the matinee,
Okay, I
and
got you.
still
Yeah.
have 15 cents left to play with out of that dollar.
I got you. I got you. Yeah, I can
Yeah,
dig
so
it. I can dig it.
yeah,
How much
don't
did
play
it
that
cost to
dollar
go to
cheap.
a game?
And again, it
I
varied
know it
from
depends
city.
on time, but yeah.
Yeah, time varied from city to city. But a box seat might have been 25 cents. And so I guess my point is the superstar players, just like it is today,
Yeah.
commanded more money.
Yeah, I got you.
But it could be $400 a month for a player like that. Uh, and most of the players, particularly the star players, they could earn a really good living, but they had to play the game year round. So once the Negro League season was over, they'd go to Latin America.
Yeah, right, right,
And
right.
quite frankly, they made more money in Latin America than they did here at home.
Yeah, I heard that. Um, did Was there ever an incident on a baseball team where the racists just came in? You know how them white folks do, man. They get mad at you and then they want to burn a cross at a stadium, or they threatening the people if you show up, any of that kind of thing?
That challenges really never took place on the field. Now, I'm sure when they went in for barnstorming games into some of the small white towns, playing the local town teams, they had to endure some stuff, probably had some insults sent their way. But these people wanted to see a ball game. Now, after the ball game, they might have their challenges because you don't know if you can get a meal. You don't know if there's a place for you to stay. So they would sleep on the bus and eat their peanut butter and crackers, And so, but the baseball field, in many respects, was their sanctuary. That's where they got a chance to show their goods. They got a chance to put on full display all this immense talent.
I got you.
Yeah, and so the encounters on the field were very minimal. Outside, again, like you said, and when you're playing in the Negro leagues, in those games, you really weren't running into those issues.
I got you.
Until after you had to leave. Now, depending on if they're playing in a major league stadium, you might not be able to use the facility. So, you're playing in that stadium, but you may not be able to use the doggone showers in that facility.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you ran into those kinds.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. That was their biggest challenge.
Yeah. How many on an average, how many people would come to a game?
Oh man, Anthony, they filling them up. Here in Kansas City, the ballpark held, I don't know, 16, 17,000 people.
How many?
When the Monarchs played, it was 17,000 plus standing room only.
17?
17 plus 17 plus.
That's a good game.
Well, but then they go to Yankee Stadium where you had greater capacity, and they put 40,000 people in the ballpark.
Really?
In Chicago for the Negro Leagues All-Star game, East-West All-Star game, they got over 50,000 in the ballpark.
Really?
They were playing in major league stadiums, and they were oftentimes outdrawing the major league teams in their own ballpark.
Really? Man. So, man, that's huge. That's pretty.
Oh no. This is serious.
Yeah, that's huge. Did the government try to get in and try to jam them up in any way? It's always something.
It wasn't as much as government interference in the league itself, but there were instances because you had some guys who, I guess the term today would be maybe racketeers. They were numbers runners.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You had some number runners who owned teams.
Right.
Yeah. And but we know the numbers ain't nothing but the lottery now.
Right. right. No question. Yeah, no question.
But it was deemed illegal, and you did have some Negro League owners who ran numbers, and that's one of the ways in which they financed their ball club.
Yeah, I'm sure it's always something behind it. Did and they play? How many? They play double headers and all that kind of thing too.
Double headers, triple headers. How many games you needed to play, but their season wasn't as long as Major League Baseball season.
Okay.
Because the biggest hurdle they had was gaining access to stadiums. Only a handful of Negro League teams had their own stadiums.
Right.
And so now you're really depending on Major League Baseball stadiums to get access to their stadiums. So you'd have to kind of schedule your games when the home team was on the road.
I got you.
And so that was the biggest hurdle I think they faced, and the biggest difference between the two leagues by and large. Talent is not one of them.
Yeah.
Talent in the Negro leagues wouldn't take a backseat to any league.
Yeah.
The fundamental biggest difference was finances.
Yeah.
Major League Baseball simply had more money, and they all had their own stadium.
Was there ever a game televised or something like that, or?
Later on, there were a couple of games that we are aware of that did get television, some radio games, that were broadcast on radio, and at least one or two that I'm aware of that had some early TV coverage.
Oh, really?
But by and large, no.
Okay.
And so again, if it's not for the black press,
Yeah.
we would know very little about the Negro League.
So what? I mean, so if a game was coming to town, I guess you had to put the ad in the newspaper for to let the people know
Yep.
as soon as possible. You know, you
Yep.
got a couple
Now
days advance.
they were master marketers now. They
Okay.
understood how to get fans into the ballpark. You know, there were beauty pageants. There are all these things that, you know, gonna pique people's interest to come out to the ballpark. Rube Foster was standing on the corner of 18th and Vine, right below my office. People say he was standing there with a megaphone, have a megaphone, and he's telling everybody who walked by what his Chicago American Giants were going to do to their Kansas City Monarchs. And people flocked to the ball game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beside the championship, was there a big rivalry between two teams? Like, was Kansas City, if they were so dominant, they had another team, you know, I don't know if you can say the Dodgers and
right across the state, here in St. Louis. So, you know, there was a rivalry going all the way back to the Negro Leagues with the Kansas City Monarchs and the St. Louis Stars.
Okay.
So Homestead Grays and Pittsburgh Crawfords, there in the Pittsburgh area.
Okay.
Yeah, man, the two owners really didn't like each other.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, because the Pittsburgh Crawfords owner, a guy named Gus Greenlee, literally raided the talent from the Homestead Grays. He had a lot of money though. Okay. Greenlee had a lot of money. Okay. And Greenlee was paying top dollar to bring these guys over to his ball club. Okay. So it created a heated rivalry. Okay. So yeah, no, there were some great rivalries through the years, and most of them included our Kansas City Monarchs. Everybody wanted to beat the Monarchs.
Y'all were the dominant team, no question about it. Yeah, I got you. Let me ask you this, and again, there's no kind of disrespect in it. The one thing that brought the Negro League Baseball to the forefront, you know, like to me, and I'm sure a lot of others, was the Bingo Long All-Stars.
Yes.
But they looked more comical. Was there a comical team in Negro League Baseball?
There were one called the Ethiopian Clowns, who later became the Indianapolis Clowns. And they had business relationships with Abe Saperstein and Sid Pollock. And if those names ring a bell, it's because they were both involved with the Harlem Globetrotters. And the Indianapolis Clowns were essentially the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball.
Oh, okay.
And so legendary stars like the great Goose Tatum, who is enshrined in the Basketball Hall of Fame, was a slick fielding first baseman for the Indianapolis Clowns. So they would have a couple of guys who would entertain before, during, and after games.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to the delight of fans. Well, today we call them mascots. But the rest of the team were very serious baseball players.
Okay.
If you asked one of those guys to dress up in a clown outfit, man, you'd have to fight him. And one of the most legendary clowns is the late, great Henry Aaron. Henry Aaron's career began in the Negro League with the Indianapolis Clowns in 1952.
Really?
Yeah, Henry Aaron comes to the Clowns as a skinny, cross-handed hitting shortstop. And so in Henry Aaron's case, he was a right-hand hitter who was hitting with his left hand on top. That's unorthodox.
No question.
The fear is that you break your wrist hitting in that manner.
Right.
Henry Aaron is knocking the cover off the baseball in a highly unorthodox fashion. When he gets to the Clowns, they put the right hand on top, and the rest, as we say, is history.
Yeah.
He was shortly after discovered by the Boston Braves, who would become the Milwaukee Braves,
right,
who of course would become the Atlanta Braves.
Right.
But it all began in the Negro Leagues with the Indianapolis Clowns.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Was there, did they, again, you kind of alluded to it, they did something in the beginning. Did they have cheerleaders or something like that? What other comical things did they do?
Not as much as cheerleaders, but you know, like I said, they would have a lot of different civic clubs and those kinds of things. And they did have the beauty pageants. Most of these ball clubs would have, you know, we've got a trophy, a picture of I guess she was the last Miss Kansas City Monarch, 1940 Miss Kansas City Monarch, Mary Jo Weaver. Beautiful picture of her, and she's proudly with her trophy for being named Miss Monarch.
I got you.
So you had that kind of thing going on as well. And so the kids come in and they'll see the women in their bathing suits at the ballpark, and they're kind of looking, particularly the young fellas, look, guys, women didn't just get fine. They were beautiful back then,
Yeah,
just as beautiful then as they are today.
yeah, oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. No question about it. Was there any you talked about the mob? Did anybody white get involved in Negro League baseball?
Yeah, yeah, white ownership in Negro Leagues
Oh,
baseball.
really? Okay.
As white businessmen saw that there was money to be made in black baseball, they moved into black baseball as well. But by and large, it was predominantly black owned.
It was predominantly.
But one of those white men who was one of the original 8 Negro League team
Oh,
owners
really?
was J.L. Wilkinson, who owned the Kansas City Monarchs.
Oh, so really? Oh, the white guy owned the Kansas City team. Oh man.
J.L.
Okay.
Wilkinson, as I like to describe him, was a diminutive white man from Algona, Iowa, who is one of the largest figures in black baseball history.
Wow.
Yeah, no, Wilkinson, Buck O'Neill would describe J.L. Wilkinson in this fashion, that he was the first white man he ever met without any prejudice. Said J.L. Wilkinson didn't have a prejudice bone in his body. When there weren't enough hotel rooms to go around, they slept in the same bed together. His players absolutely adored him. He treated them with great class, respect, and dignity, and they played their hearts out for him. Wilkinson was a 2000 man in the early 1900s. It's not that you don't see color. We all see color.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that he respected color. He wasn't afraid of people who didn't look like him. And he had a team called the All Nations. And the All Nations would, I guess, to describe it, was a homogenous group of athletes made up of black, white, brown, Native American, Asian ball players.
Yeah.
And so Wilkinson was comfortable in his own skin, which allowed him to be comfortable around people who didn't look like him.
Oh my God, that's good. Okay. As we kind of come to a close, the museum has been operating for a number of years, and you have a big building. What kind of exhibits do you have there?
Oh man, it's a beautiful space, Anthony. It really is. We're so proud. We're so proud of this because we started this project in a one-room office about a fraction of the size of my office. All it had was a conference room table and a group of local Negro Leaguers who were with us at that time, led by the great Buck O'Neill. They literally took turns paying the monthly rent to keep the little office open. That's how we got started, man. And to see this place have grown from a one-room office to our current home, which is about 10,000 square feet of exhibit space that's filled with artifacts and great scripted pieces, multimedia displays, art, you name it, that all help bring the story of the Negro Leagues to life. And we went from being a one-room office to now being recognized as America's national Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, as deemed and designated so by the United States Congress. So it's a special place. I encourage people, whether you are a baseball fan or not, because what I love about this story is you don't have to be a baseball fan to fall in love with this story. Because if you are a fan of American history, you're going to love this story.
I love it.
If you are a fan of the underdog overcoming adversity,
I love it.
go on to greatness, you're going to love this story.
Yeah.
Now, if you are a baseball fan to boot, well, like we say in the country, you're in hog heaven, man, because it combines the best of both of those worlds.
I love it.
And so if your travels bring you to Kansas City, I highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm coming.
Great museum.
Yeah, I'm coming. I tell you, I've been to a bunch of cities that have pro sports teams in Kansas City and Portland. I think are the only two that I have not been to. So I'm coming down. Do you all have a festival or?
Yeah, we before
the
pandemic, we were doing what we call the Heart of America Hot Dog Festival, celebrating baseball and hot dogs.
Yeah.
And Anthony, we put over 10,000 people in this festival, man. They come to eat hot dogs and live entertainment, access to the museum.
What's the museum's website?
You can find us on the World Wide Web at nlbm.com. The museum's socials is NLBMKC. Let me know. Let me say that NLB Museum KC, and
Yeah.
that's for Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram
Yeah.
at NLBM Prez, Prez.
Yeah, I love it, man. I told everybody I got a heavyweight on the channel, man. He the president of the museum. He came on Strong Inspirations. I so appreciate you spending time with me and my viewers on this. Everybody, come on now. You know what you got to do. Just hit the subscribe, hit the like on this video, hit the notifications bell. Tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. And to you, my brother, I really want to say with all sincerity, I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, because we really appreciate what you're doing, keeping that history alive. We coming down there. Everybody, we out. Peace. Thank you.